Returning to our top story now, we'll go to Canberra with Sky News political editor David Spears, who's speaking with the co-chair of the Reconciliation Council.
Tracy, thank you. I'm joined now by Tom Calma. He is the co-chair of Reconciliation Australia and a former head of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islands Social Justice Commission. Tom Calma, thanks for joining us. We've seen another protest today, this time a march up to Parliament House, a burning of an Australian flag. What do you make of this?
Oh, look, it's, firstly, the burning of the flag is just not acceptable. People have a right to express a view, and we do support in Australia the democratic right to protest. But it's got to be done in a civil way. It's got to be done in a respectful way. And
was that the case yesterday as well, with that protest involving the Prime Minister and opposition leader?
Yeah, well, that was another sad situation where it escalated into something where the Prime Minister's safety was threatened. Again, not acceptable. And there's a lot of advocacy that takes place in Australia with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and governments, and it can be done in a respectful way.
What's going on here? Who's to blame for this?
I don't think there's anybody to blame. I think it's just a very emotive period of time for many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Australia Day, the general population believes that. Many people see it as Invasion Day or Survival Day, and it's an emotional time. Unfortunately, there was a bit of misrepresentation of what the Leader of the Opposition said.
Was there anything wrong with what Tony Abbott said?
Look, I think that he's clarified that. I think we should really focus on what is happening in Australia at the moment. We should focus on both the government and the opposition have signed a statement of intent with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people way back in March 2008 to say that we'd work together to achieve equality by the year 2030. We need to stay focused. We need to recognise that we've come some way, but there's still a long way to go. In every social indicator out there, an economic indicator, we are a long way behind.
We've heard you, we've heard Mick Gooder, we've heard Warren Mundine and others all condemning the actions of those involved in the protest. Is it fair to say these people involved are a fringe element, a hardline element?
Look, I think they're people who have been advocating for a long time for sovereignty, and sovereignty can work in some nations. In Australia, prior to the Mabo decision in 1992, when the doctrine of terra nullius was overturned and Aboriginal people were recognised as being here prior to colonisation, which was a very important time, but that's only 1992. In other countries of the world, treaties were struck with the Indigenous people, and those treaties bring certain rights. You look at Canada, where they have a fair bit of autonomy over their reserve lands, where they can set tax regimes, they can enter into businesses, they have subsurface rights over minerals and resources. We don't enjoy the same in Australia, and so the dialogue still needs to take place, but let's do it in a very informed way.
Do you think the Tent Embassy needs to stay?
Look, I think it's a very important symbolic entity for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. It highlights the struggle, and by 2030, if there is equality, if we do have recognition in our constitution of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, then the Tent Embassy's done its job.
So once we get constitutional recognition, you don't think there's a need for the Tent Embassy?
I think, no, I said by 2030, when we get equality, right. And we are recognised as and we enjoy the same privileges as the rest of Australia, we have the same education outcomes, the same health outcomes, then we've achieved equality.
Is what we've seen over the last 24 hours or so going to set back the reconciliation cause?
Well, look, I think in some ways it might. For some people it'll just harden their resolve, but I think there's a big responsibility for media to be able to present a real situation and to be able to try and depoliticise, and I call on government and opposition to do the same, depoliticise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander affairs. Let's focus on what needs to be done, what we've achieved so far, and let's move forward. And there's plenty of people that are signed on to the reconciliation movement.
But is this also going to make it harder to build support for constitutional recognition?
Well, I hope not. I think that people who will take the time to look at the Unity site, look at the Australian Human Rights Commission website, look at the Reconciliation Australia website, will become informed and know what needs to be done and what has been done so far.
Tom Calma, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Tracy, back to you in the studio.